Today I want to talk about how to prepare for a possible future of artificial intelligence in software development and probably in other fields too. But first, I've got to go on a bigger tangent. But bear with me, I'll get there. Hello, my name is David, and you're watching a series of videos where I talk about software development while I'm working on my bonsai trees and pre-bonsai and very early stage bonsai projects. This little Cotoneaster here has many different possible futures. I grew it from a cutting last year, so it's now in its second year and I didn't do any styling to it. So right now I still have all the possibilities to style it in all different directions, or even to just plant it in my garden and let it become a garden shrub. It will take many years to get there, but all those possible futures are still there. This tree here has less possible futures. It's also very early in its development, but I did an initial styling last year together with my children, and now certain things are just set for this tree. The final height of this tree is set. It will be a small Shohin type tree, and some of the primary branches are already still in place. There's still work to do until we could call this a nice bonsai tree, but the general direction of where this tree will end up or should end up is already there. But even this tree still has many different possible futures. One of the branches might die and I might have to replace it with a different branch, or there's other things that could happen to this tree or that I could do to this tree so that it has different possible futures. With generative artificial intelligence, we are more in this stage where all the possible futures are still there than in the stage of the other tree where the general direction has already been set in place. And by generative artificial intelligence, I basically mean computer programs, artificial intelligence that generate stuff. So computer programs like ChatGPT that generate code or text or that can summarize it, or also programs that generate videos, images, audio, or whatever. Those technologies are already quite useful. They are growing, but they are still in a very early stage. And that reminds me of the early stages of Bitcoin. I still remember when I first heard about Bitcoin, I think it was in 2009 or 2010, I was talking to friends whether we should try to mine Bitcoin on our laptops, on our graphics cards back then. And then we didn't do it just because we were lazy and also because we knew that the energy costs were very high for something that had zero value. But what I already saw back then was that this thing has many different possible futures and that some of them would be extremely interesting. So as I've said, I didn't mine Bitcoin back then. And even if I did, I'm pretty sure I still wouldn't be rich right now because I would have sold at 10 euros or whatever was the first high price that Bitcoin reached. So I wouldn't have any Bitcoins anymore anyway. And as it turned out, it became a really interesting project that also has some uses, but I think it took one of the possible futures that ultimately ended up badly. There was another thing that happened in the cryptosphere that, in my opinion, had zero possible futures. So when I first heard about NFTs or non-fungible tokens, you remember the Bored Apes craze and whatever. When I first heard it, I thought, this is a scam. This has zero possible futures. And in this case, I turned out to be right. I didn't prepare for any of the possible futures. I didn't try to buy NFTs. I didn't try to sell them because for me, this thing had zero possible futures. And with NFTs, what really made me sad was that a lot of people I respect and admire jumped onto the bandwagon and also participated in this scam. Like Tim Berners-Lee, who sold an NFT for Mosaic. He just sold an NFT. So he sold a receipt and he became a part of the scam. With NFTs, I didn't prepare for any possible futures because I saw none. With Bitcoin, I didn't prepare for any possible futures, even though I saw some. And in the first case, I was correct to do so I was right. In the second case, it was probably not the best thing that I could have done. I'm now unwiring this tree because the wire was on here already quite long and it starts to bite in a little bit. And while I do this, I want to talk about artificial intelligence. Finally, right? With generative AI, we have reached a point where it can be really useful, but also where it's still completely in its infancy. There are people who say it will become much, much better. So good, in fact, that a lot of things that we do right now as humans can be done by machines soon. There is a fear that we'll get to a general intelligence where artificial intelligence can do everything better than humans and learn anything. But also we're at a point where companies who are working on artificial intelligence are losing tremendous amounts of money, and also where we see that user acceptance is not exactly what they had expected. So sometimes they have to shove AI down the throats of their users because people don't use it out of their own motivation. So here we have quite a lot of possible futures. One extreme possible future is that AI companies start to fail on a massive scale. Imagine one of the big ones going bankrupt. This might cause a chain reaction where several AI companies might fail, and this might result in a greater economic downturn or even in a global recession. On the other hand, we have the possibility that we reach artificial general intelligence, meaning that AI models will be able to learn anything at least as fast as humans and can do any job at least as good as humans. And then we have everything in between. AI models stay more or less like they are. They get slightly worse because their training data gets worse. They get slightly better, or they get much better. How do we prepare for those possible futures? We can ask ourselves two things. Can I change one of those futures? With the tree, I can put on wire, I can clip it, I can let certain parts grow, I can inhibit growth in other parts, so I can shape the future of this tree. With artificial intelligence, the progress of it and the worldwide adoption, I cannot change anything. So that's out of the question here, trying to shape the future. But sometimes that's possible. And the other question is, would I behave differently when one or the other future is coming? So with artificial intelligence, if we ever reach artificial general intelligence, is if one of the big companies reaches AGI, then I think we'll have big problems. No one of us will have a job anymore because all of our jobs will be done by machines, cheaper and better than we do them. And the way capitalism works now, by privatizing all the profits and putting all the negative consequences on the society as a whole, we will have some extremely rich people, everyone else will be poor, and the economy will crash. This is my opinion. On the other hand, if we see a big crash in artificial intelligence, there's also not much we can do. So the only futures we can prepare is AI is getting much better. Then we probably don't have to do anything right now, because anything we learn about it right now will be outdated by the time it gets really good. Or it will stay more or less the same. It will get slightly better or slightly worse. And to prepare for this future, that's the world we're already living in. So we can learn to use those tools. We can practice with them. We can use them where they make sense, and also still try to stay good at the skills we already have. If you liked this video so far, hit the subscribe button and also like it. This helps me a lot with the algorithm. How should you prepare for a future of generative AI in your field? I cannot give you a general answer, but I hope I could help you with this video by telling you how I prepare and how I evaluate possible futures. My name is David, and I hope you'll tune in to the next video of this series, where I talk about software development topics while I'm working on some bonsai trees, pre-bonsai and very early stage projects.